I have a hell of a personality, man.
And you can see I threw down a challenge now, and he's like, that's the opening
Why
line.
won't you sleep with me?
Yeah, we won't get high. There will be no sex. And he's like, oh. But
Call it thrown.
This is going to be the shortest podcast ever now, Andy. Thank you.
That was great. And cut to logo with awkward sounds of like a chicken farm or something.
Well, welcome to the Feel Free to Feel Free podcast.
We're feeling free.
And we have, as always, our co-host, the Wookiee himself, Mr. Andy Suri. And then we have as our guest today, Mr. Bill Adams. And you're a multi-talented man.
I'm not good at anything, though, so...
That's what I hear. That's what I hear. But people say keeping you around.
Yeah, I guess my face. I don't know. I got a face for radio, quite honestly.
Well, we're going to figure that out.
Yeah,
see how
right.
many likes you get on this.
0.1. I didn't know they could do a tenth of a like.
Yeah. So how many podcasts have you done?
I think this is 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
Honestly.
So
Yeah.
you're still a noob. You're getting into it.
Still new. Although, I do this public speaking where, I'm speaking about entrepreneurship, and I do that quite often. And so, those kind of things intersect. Although this will be the first podcast for video. So I don't know how that will go.
Yeah, we're totally copying Rogan's model of a multi-camera setup and trying to get it.
Good deal.
Yeah. We'll see if it works or not.
It worked for him for sure.
But I mean, I think that's how we met, was through the entrepreneurial side, right? I can't remember where we met.
Honestly, I was trying to think about that when when you said, hey, you want to do a podcast? And I was like, where did we actually meet? And I don't know if I do know.
Ooh, elaborate.
Yeah, right on. So we were watching the July 4th celebration on that black building in downtown Seattle.
Yeah, what's the big one? The Columbia Tower. Yeah, we were on a deck on that thing.
Yeah, and we had a mutual friend, and who is Rob
Crowley. We're trying to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, right on. Super interesting dude. When they say send lawyers, guns, and money, he's the lawyer.
He's the lawyer.
Yeah, right on.
Get an enabling lawyer. That's what you want. Rob is an enabling lawyer.
Yeah. In fact, for lawyers, I like to get the lawyers that slam the door shut and close the blinds and say, hey, what do you need? What do we need this to be?
Yeah.
Those guys, they tend to work a little bit better than the ones who are just kind of sit in a box in a cubicle somewhere and they're just looking to check a box and move on, right? Those guys,
6-minute minimums on emails.
Yeah, right. I'd much prefer the free thinkers. So, yeah. But so we were there, and Rob introduced us, and immediately we were like talking about all kinds of stuff, and our backgrounds are sort of similar in special operations, but very different. How long did you spend in special ops?
I spent 3 years in special operations. You spent a lot longer.
21. Yeah. So that is kind of interesting how I got into there. And my backstory is I was pretty much a booger-eating moron until I was 17. Honestly,
that's all of us.
I flunked out of high school.
It's the Y chromosome.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah. I had just no desire to be in high school, and they said, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And I said, out of nothing, I'm going to join the Army. And my dad, God bless him, man, he says, "All right, let's go down to the recruiting office." And so that day in school, I left the vice principal's office and went down with my dad at the age of 17. And we got into the recruiter's office, and the recruiter looked at my dad and said, "Hey, Mr. Adams, this must be Billy." And I thought, the gig is up, man. And I was like, did your recruiter lie to you? I was like, I didn't know what was in the Army at all. And I said, I want to be an infantry guy to run around with guns. He's like, we can hook you up. Yep. And they did. And I got exactly what I wanted.
What year was that? Would you mind?
1983. And it's super important because in 1984, they made a high school diploma a requirement or equivalent. In 1983, and I joined in November 1983, you could join and promise to get a GED. And so my GED is from Pierce Community College here in Washington. It was my first duty station, right? And so I got here, 2nd of the 1st Infantry, walking around, shoot, move, communicate, patrolling, all that good stuff.
And where are you from originally?
New Hampshire.
Okay, the Shire. Live free or die.
Yeah, live free or die. Best motto in the Union, right?
Agreed.
And like, I don't want to put a point on it. We weren't, we weren't poor, but we didn't have any money to do anything as cool as like a vacation. And so we're just kind of at that middle class edge. And I knew that if I wanted to do something that I would have to get out of New Hampshire. And the only way to really think about doing that was either education, which obviously that was a non-starter for this cat, or Army or military service. Men and women, use the military service as a springboard to go from, quite honestly, most of the time, like a lower to middle class where I was, and try to increase their ability to do things, right? And so, that's why I joined the military. And when I got in the military, man, like, I was always a physical kid. My dad had no idea. My dad's a nuclear physicist, right? He was a good guy, but he was just loved books, didn't care about making money or anything else, just loved the equations, right? And so he didn't really know what to do with me. I was a physical guy, right? And I had no desire to be in books at that period of time. And so, my father just had
Did he have a pencil protector?
He did not, but he was right there. He thought that his body was to carry his brain around.
And that's it.
That was it, right?
Okay.
Like, that was my dad. Which, to his credit, I mean, he was the first guy in my family to actually have a white-collar job. Before then, pretty much blue-collar family, Irish folks out of Albany, New York. And we're pretty much, the railroad, that kind of thing. That was big in our family. And that was us, right? And that is us to a large extent today. And the folks who got out of that area of New York and, New Hampshire and Connecticut and Massachusetts, where my family is generally, are the ones who are in the military. So I got Timmy Cunningham. He's a cousin of mine. He's in Force Recon now. Okay. And so, like, that is kind of the springboard. And so, I did that. And like, when I got into basic training, I thought, heck, this is great. Nobody cares what you did. They just care about, your ability to run around the woods with stuff.
What's your
right?
2 mile time? Are you fast? Right?
Yeah, exactly. And at that point, I was 139 pounds. I was 17 years old, man. Like, I could do that. This is great. Like, this is super
Pull-ups
fun.
for days.
Pull-ups for days. The monkey bars, you have to use like the parallel bars, to go into the chow hall. I could crush those. And they were like, hey, how fast is your 2 mile time? And then it was like, 10, 15, 10, 20.
You're one of those guys, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, and, at 139, it's not hard to be that guy.
The power to weight ratio at 139 is pretty high.
Yeah. Less aerodynamic drag too.
It's true, and so I was a tiny guy and, I was like 5'8" then. I didn't have my last growth spurt until I was in the military. I got reissued new gear. How many times have you heard that?
Yeah.
Right? So, it was like 3 weeks into basic training. I was like, oh, this is great. I got to my first duty station where like shoot, move, communicate. Cool. This is more of the same. I just love this stuff. And, it wasn't long before the Green Berets that are on Fort Lewis, they do recruiting little things. And they were, and 275.
The long hair and the Green Berets, man. Just like everybody wants to be a part of that.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, they, 275, your battalion, was right down the street from us. 2nd and the 1st Infantry was literally, where the compound is for 275. Then there was like a group of barracks. Yeah. That was 2nd and 1st Infantry.
I'm familiar. I was in 520. I was the next buildings past that. Right. And nobody wants to go to battalion because they got those stupid haircuts.
Right, exactly. But actually, I went over to battalion. I talked to Sergeant Major Voiles at the time. I remember this. And he was like, oh, yeah, we'll get you over here. And so they had me slotted for RIP. But at the same time, it was like it took a while to figure this thing out. Right. And in the meantime, there is this like gym that's really close to there, where they have like the smoker events, where they have boxing smokers, and the SF guys were there saying, hey, come on over to SF. And it was literally, you could go to RIP or you could re-enlist and go SF and go to the Bear program and, see if you can make it through the Q course. And I thought, I'll do that. Right. And so that really changed my destiny, quite honestly. Yeah. So
those pivotal moments, you just make those single decisions.
I think about, because I seriously was a booger-eating moron. Like I was going nowhere, right? And to just say, hey, I want to join the Army, and have that dumb piece of luck that came out of my mouth, and my father knew that would come out of my mouth. Amazing, right? Yeah. I'm sure he had an equation for it. And so, when I got in the military, another thing was that, Ranger Battalion SF, right? Because if I went to Ranger Battalion, who knows what would have happened? That was probably 1985 then.
Yeah.
And so, I had no idea, but I went to the Q course, graduated the Q course, went to Oki. Okinawa is first group forward. For, those who don't know, first group has folks at Fort Lewis, Washington, or Joint Base Lewis McChord, and they also have folks forward in Okinawa. And I was lucky enough to, when I got orders to Okinawa, there was other guys who were already tabbed out, who were officers and enlisted.
Yeah.
They were teaching us, and they were like, "You got Oki? Oh my God, you're gonna love that, right?" True.
And what team did you go on first? What kind of
So
team?
I went to a regular line team first. So and it was I had already had a couple of skydives that I did at Fort Lewis, where I went to the Fort Lewis Parachute Club. They had one then, and my first jump was out of a CH-47. So
lucky.
that doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
And I had no idea how lucky that was, but that's a great ship. And so I got 5 parachute jumps, and then I started doing delayed ripcord pulls, DRCP, and I got a couple of those. And then I went to the Q course, and they found that out in Okinawa. Hey, you already have a couple of skydives, and I was like, well, this is it. And they said, well, why don't you try out for the Halo team? And so about a year after I was on my first team, I went and to the Halo team and really never looked back. The hardest thing about Halo school is getting a slot to Halo school. Honestly,
that's what I hear. I actually was just out jumping last weekend. I met a guy who just took a team at first group, the Halo team. Yeah. He's like, "Oh, it's so lucky. It's so fortunate. It's the magic bullet. Like you were the one guy who gets it." Yeah.
And there's straight up fights for slots, right? Mm-hmm. And so I graduated from the Q course as a medic, at which medics are in a little bit of a higher demand in Special Forces. That's about a 2-year program in Special Forces, the longest qualification course. MOS.
Yeah.
And so, there's less people who have that. And so, there's less people vying for that Halo slot. So I got lucky there pretty much.
Is it true that the military, well, I know it's true the military finds a way to take everything that you have fun with and make it unpleasant. So was Halo school, was it unpleasant?
No. Well, sort of. They took as much joy out of it as they possibly could. Mm-hmm. As soon as you were ready to move on to the next thing, they put it on you. So your first 5 jumps are pretty much slick. They call it Hollywood, where you're just jumping with yourself and trying to figure out not to kill yourself. And then right after this jump number 6, they put either a rucksack or a weapon. I forget the order, but they, in very short order, they put a weapon on you, and then a rucksack and a weapon, and then O2 rucksack, a weapon. And then once you have, probably 20 jumps, and I mean, they do this every day. So 20 jumps comes very quick.
Yeah.
And then once they have that, they turn the lights out. They turn day into night, right? You start out night slick, same drill. And so really every single time that you're ready to progress, you progress. And everybody progresses at different levels, and you're still continuing to jump as the people who are slowest to progress to the level match where you are, right? Mm-hmm. But then once everybody during the day is doing, full combat equipment, O2, with, all your stuff, then they say, okay, we're switching to night. And that's a couple of weeks, so it's still fun. But I remember very clearly on my 16th jump, putting my ripcord back in my jumpsuit and going, I got this. But it took 16 jumps to figure out if I got this. And that's about 16 minutes of interesting thought process from leaving the plane to opening the parachute, knowing that I'm not sure I have this.
Yeah, I enjoy free fall way more than static line.
Way more.
Yeah, way more. The concept of no, I can get distance away from you for a few seconds before I open up a parachute. I can actually steer my parachute versus no, let's shove 100 guys in the air at the same time, but no steering on their parachutes.
And when you go back to rounds, every once in a while, you're even on a Halo team, you still have to jump the rounds, right? And when you go back to that and you pull down on a toggle and you just kind of spin in place, it's why? And that's very interesting, landing, night combat equipment for static line. I probably, all in all, the proponent for Halo, for all air operations in a company in Special Forces is the Halo company. So I do have a lot of static line jumps, maybe 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a lot of suffering. It's a lot of days sitting in a harness.
It's a lot of knees, I'm glad that I'm not that big.
Yeah. So you did 21 years and you graduated as what rank?
So they were going to take me off of an A team. So, I went Halo and I did Halo for 5 years, went back to Fort Lewis, went to scuba school, and then I did scuba for about 5 years, went back to Okinawa, took over the team that was Halo as a team sergeant. And then I went to Charlie Company, and I took over a specialty team there in Charlie Company. And I was team sergeant for a total of almost 5 years, which is pretty extraordinary.
That's long.
Yeah, it is. And, I don't know how it is now. It changes, ebbs and flows. But, 5 years is quite a long time. And I said that, if the second that I'm off of an A team, I'm out of here. And so they said, look, you're going on the list for Sergeant Major. And I was like, I don't really want to do that because Sergeant Major is a desk job. It's the first desk job. And I said, well, I'll retire instead. And so I did. Yeah.
While you're doing all of this, I was like still figuring out girls and how to drive a car and all those things.
The booger-eating moron phase.
The booger moron phase, yeah.
Yeah, right on.
So then you married kids during your time in the military?
Yeah, I was pretty much single until my 30s. And then, a friend of mine said, when are you going to settle down? When are you going to get married? And I was like, never. I'm having a pretty damn good time.
Yeah.
And, she was like, well, make a list. And so I was like, okay, I started making a list of qualities. Well, she has to not necessarily served in the military, but she has to understand the military in a deep way because that's a big part of my existence. My adulthood has been in the military. She has to speak a couple of languages. She has to have a good job. She has to be willing to give up that job for children, and she has to scuba dive and she has to skydive and do all these things. And the friend said, you're never going to get married. I was like, that works for me.
Yeah.
About 6 months later, lo and behold, after that conversation, I think because you write a list, you start bringing it into
manifestation.
Reality.
I talk to people about that all the time.
100% agree, man. I don't know how many times that has occurred, but if you want to do something, start making that real in your own head. Super important.
Yeah.
I learned that probably during that particular phase of my life where whatever you manifest, positive or negative, you're pulling it into your reality. It's a super real thing. So lo and behold, this gal comes onto the drop zone. She's new to skydiving. She's already scuba dives. I saw her at the drop zone and I made a beeline for her and asked her out immediately.
Attaboy.
Right on. Right.
Yeah.
And she goes, you know what? Both of my parents just died and I need some time to sort out my head. Can we start out as friends? And I was like, sure, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
And so we were friends for about, 6 months before we started dating. And I think that was actually pretty crucial. But I remember that after that first conversation, I was like, wow, that's a tough first conversation. She had these old brick phones, then it was cutting edge, man. And she gets on the phone. She's like, oh, hang on. She gets on the phone and she starts speaking a foreign language. And I'm like, oh. I start checking the boxes. And I was like, hey, Lisa, how many languages do you speak? She's like, 4. And I was like, amazing. What do you do? And she's like, I work for, I think it was AirTouch Cellular, which is now Verizon, and, she's like, this is what I do. I help folks out, speak different languages, and this is what I do. And I save up enough money, and I usually quit the job or take a hiatus, and I go travel and, skydive and scuba dive and do that kind of stuff. I was like, oh, right on. And so right on from that moment, that's my girl, right? And so
she is awesome.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. And I tell her every single day, when I leave, I make sure that everybody in my world knows that I love you is the last thing that they hear from me, just in case there's not a next thing, right? And so I've been telling her that every day now for 25 years.
Attaboy.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. So yeah, got 2 kids. My son's in college, and my daughter did the college thing for about a heartbeat during COVID. She graduated high school in COVID, and she started college in COVID, all online. And she's like, this kind of college is not for me. So, she's now local with us. She's got a local job. She's 20 years old and she's trying to figure it out, man.
That's exactly what my stepdaughter's doing.
Right?
Class 2020, did 1 year online, 1 semester in a dorm under COVID rules. and just like checked out for a minute, is making some money and resetting. And it's like,
I think
it's
there's
great.
a whole generation there, man. You know, that's it's super bummer.
Well, it's just interesting because, like, for those who don't know it, like Andy and I are related, and our kids are cousins.
I just learned something.
Yeah, and so, but like all the girls look up to Taylor, you know, his daughter, because she's the oldest, and you know, she just had this crazy experience at college, like during COVID time, and you know, now that all the kids are reconsidering, and for good reason, you know, they are.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's totally okay.
I do too.
It's fine.
Yeah. Honestly, other countries do it differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'll travel and then they'll go to university, right? So they graduate from high school, travel for a year, and then go to university. And I think that gives you a way better perspective, because you're expected to know what you want to do by the time you're a senior in high school. You know, I'd love to take a poll of 60-year-olds and say, that thing that you were doing in high school that you went to college for, is that what you wound up doing? Because I would bet that probably maybe 20%, maybe less, actually do that. And I think that if you take a break, do whatever you want, figure out the stuff that you shouldn't do, figure out the stuff that you think you want to do, and then move forward, that just might be a better life.
Yeah, especially with the price of tuition these days.
Well, but if you pull the money out of it and just, I constantly find myself doing this. I'm a little younger than you, but we have a kid who's the same age, right? So probably a whole bunch of the same stuff that drives you batshit crazy, that drives me batshit crazy, but not because the kids are bad. It's just, you know, do you actually have friends and do things? Like, your interactions but through technology are far more impactful to them than I could ever understand they possibly could be, because that's what their interactions have always been.
Yeah.
So when, you know, for you in the mid 80s, me in the early 90s, being 17, 18, college, the military, whatever, if you didn't take that year, kind of was the internet. Like, if you didn't see it on TV, hear it on a radio, read it in a newspaper or a hard copy magazine, you had to physically go experience things to experience shit.
Yeah.
It was really hard. You couldn't get it at a video store, or like you had to physically go do something to experience something.
Yeah.
Other than, you know, look at something in your pocket.
Or go to the library.
Right. So that experience of just saying, okay, go to school, was mind-opening unto itself, because it was so different than where you came from. Where now, like, if a kid has a phone in his pocket from age 13, they've experienced more between 13 and 18 than we did between 18 and 30. Informationally.
I never put it together like that.
But it's a trip, right? Yeah. Like, what people in general know, myself included, like with all the stuff that we've done and the things that we've worked on, and like that you've done without education or gone and worked on, like, come on, man, like the shit that you can learn just because you want to now is flabbergasting.
Yeah.
Compared to what it was in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. And that's a very interesting point, that you always know that, but putting it together like that is a good synopsis of why people are so different today.
Yeah, it's wild. So when, at the same time, when I hear stuff from Taylor that's like, where she's not necessarily communicating as much as I would like to, I have to just stop and be like, I know this person's intelligent. I know that they're out there digging up information. They're 20 and they're choosing not to tell me what it is. Do you trust that they're actually, like, at least absorbing something?
Yeah.
Making a decision on something and moving forward. Cool. Like, when I told her when she was 13, you know, Timothy Leary's Think for Yourself and Question Authority. And she actually used that as the thesis for her college entrance letter. Cool. Which was a trip.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Which was super cool. And, but as she's moving forward with all this stuff, it's just really wild to have to sit back and say, all right, like, do what you're going to do. But then at the same time, I see, because there's so much information coming at these kids, the pressure to be right is exponentially greater, because they can see what wrong is exponentially more.
So do you think that causes people to be of my daughter's age, your daughter's age, to be more hesitant to say something out of fear of being wrong?
Maybe I don't go there where Christy and I have gone with Taylor has been more of right and wrong really don't matter when it comes to decisions. Like there's morality, there's what's good and bad, but her words at times and my words when I was a kid, like I don't want to fuck up. I don't want to make the wrong decision. But you're going to, so then what? And the answer is you make another decision.
Yeah.
And then you make another decision, and then you make another decision. Because if you make the right decision and that's like a final thing, well, you're fucking bored.
Yeah.
Like, what now? Like,
well, I think
you don't get to do something new unless you kind of did something wrong or learned from it or had a push, or, right?
The only thing wrong is standing still is the only wrong answer, quite honestly.
But we've had to, and not even just with her, but I just kind of hear it and sense it a lot of like, there's again so much input and so much information and so much judgment placed on what is right and is wrong and is attractive or not, or fun or not, or shit real or not, that I remember what it's like to be, a teenager. I actually do, and it sucked. It's a pain in the ass. Like everything's hard. You're not allowed to do shit. Everybody's telling you to do shit. If you want to do something cool, you got to hide it from somebody all the time.
All the time.
And the only way to do it right is to not get caught, but do the thing you wanted to do. And if you get caught, don't actually get in trouble so you can do it again, right? Like there's all these different parameters.
It's harder now because everything is on video.
Oh God.
Like I'm glad that
I'd be in jail, bro.
Not have that. Because man,
I'm so thankful for that.
Oh,
right?
All the dumb stuff that I did.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
I wish that the video record could be expunged, like annually, something like that. And there's emails that now work that way. And there's there's apps like I think Signal or maybe some others have like conversations and then afterwards they delete themselves.
Yeah,
right?
Snap and all those.
But you can always screen cap that stuff, and that's
Absolutely.
the problem.
Yeah,
and so the challenge I have with a lot of these things is I look at the leadership of our country.
Yeah.
And I've been doing a lot of like digging into leadership and finding out why people make decisions and how they make them. And basically the people that are there are kind of groomed into that position, and they have left and right boundaries established for them, and they have a lot of non-disclosure agreements and everything else if they do have any kind of indiscretions. But unless you're in that community that's getting groomed into that position, there's just so much stuff about you that people could find out that they could trash you over, right?
Yeah.
So you would never even have a shot at a leadership position, even though you may be highly qualified for it. Now it's just literally, it's like 2 days ago, I was thinking about this. Is like, how is anybody going to run for office now?
It's true.
How is anybody?
That's a super concern.
How is anybody going to be deemed a good leader because when they were 16 or 17 years old, they made a stupid joke?
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
right.
opposition
It is down
research
to that,
these days.
honestly.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a super concern because anyone smart enough and to be revolving in those circles, they're looking at that and going, there's no way I want to be a public figure. And so our best and brightest, they take themselves out of the running, right? And so what we're left with is what we have now, which, I believe that in the next couple of years, it's going to be, one 80-year-old guy against another 80-year-old guy, plus minus a couple of years, right? And is that the best that we can do? I think not, man.
It's interesting because I'm fortunate enough to be a Henry Crown Fellow with the Aspen Global Leadership Institute.
Cool.
And we just
I have no idea what that is.
What it is they take 20 entrepreneurs from around the world,
Yeah.
from all over the planet. They put them in a room for like a week at a time over these 4 sessions, and you discuss like difficult topics. But it's no cell phones, no photos, no recordings, no nothing. And so you can have a truly open conversation with a group of business and societal leaders. And the question, and I mean, a couple guys in there are worth, guys and gals are worth, 800 million plus, like successful business owners. A lot of them are, up in that area, and they lead companies with thousands of people in them. And then the question was asked, like, who in here would run for office? Not a person at the table raised their hand.
Yeah. Yep.
Here you have highly competent, caring, good people who are concerned about fixing problems, but they would never run for a position that would allow them to do that because they know how their family would get slandered, how they would get slandered, how their life would just be wrecked.
Yeah.
Because somebody else wants to trash them over something they might have done 10 or 15 years ago out of context.
Yep. I wonder if you asked that same group, how many people would be willing to be in a position in government that was not necessarily an elected position, but was tasked to solve these problems?
I think those are people who have been calling the shots and making the hard decisions.
Maybe.
For a long period of time, and to be subject to the whim of of another person that's concerned about their image or the optics, I don't think they would survive in that environment. To go in a position where they could change it.
So what do we do?
What do we do?
You hear we'd be better off picking people out of a phone book and saying, okay, you're in there for 4 years, like everybody, the whole government. You're in there for 4 years, do your best.
Just hard term limits on literally everything.
So
at least with elected positions.
What's your thought on term limits?
It's not black and white. I think from a presidency standpoint, I'm fine with 2. The Senate and Congress, I think, both need maybe 4. I think there's value in relationship, and you can't govern or manage character. So if we elect assholes, then we're going to get shitty policy. There's really no way around that. At the same time, foreign policy committees and budget committees and whatnot, there's perspective that comes from a little bit of gray-haired clout and experience. And if you're on a foreign policy committee and you've gone through some historical events, say on the Senate side, so you've been there for 18 years, you're going to have knowledge that is valuable. So I don't think they should necessarily be truncated to 2 and 6 years or whatever, and 2 and 4 years, however you want to play it. But at the congressional level, a little longer, the presidential level, a little bit shorter, but definitely with boundaries. The idea of 30, 40, 50 years riding that dime, I don't have enough faith in human nature at its base to assume that the majority of people that end up in that position would do it with the best of intentions. I think it's just too easy to corrupt it for the best of intentions.
I heard that you're pro term limit.
Yes.
Just you can't decide the length.
I think 20 years would be good.
Yeah.
20 years of retirement.
That's a good time.
Yeah. It's like 20 seems right. You can retire out of basically every other government organization at 20 years, like 20 years. Good.
Yeah, I mean, even thinking it through though, like from a congressional level, like the House is a shorter term than the Senate. Yeah. It's supposed to turn more, right? I still think
that you have the elections every 4 years. Don't change that, but just say, hey, once you're in, 20 is it, man. You can do 20 in a row. You can do 20 and then get unelected, and then do 16 and get unelected, and then do another 4.
Just like guard time, baby.
Yeah, right. It always counts, right? Yep. It all counts.
Yeah, you can get paid for a total of X years at this job. Do it how you want. I think that would change it a lot, but ultimately, people are people, and they care about what they care about. So what is it when the pain of staying the same is more than the pain of change, you change. Yeah. And that happens at the voting base. And we're in the middle of that right now. That's why we're so polarized, because everybody's feeling pain.
I think we're polarized because of that, perhaps, but because right now, you have a media that totally has a bullhorn that is telling you to watch us because those guys are bad, no matter which side you're on. Like, MSNBC has their flavor, Fox News has their flavor. They're all liars, from top to bottom, front to back. And unfortunately, I believe the same is on every politician. So, I'll give you 2 examples. AOC, right now, there is a historic vote with, no matter how you feel about Amazon, that there was a historic vote in New York right next to her district where they unionized one shop.
I heard about that. That just released about 2 days ago.
Just now, man.
Yeah.
And so they said to AOC, hey, there are people in your district who are working in that facility. Why don't you come and talk and give us some groundswell support. We could really use it ahead of this vote. And she was like, yes, is what she said. And then before they were going to have her speak, she said, look, we're not doing any public appearances. It's because of, I have threats to my safety and things like that. Okay, that's valid. But then she goes to the Met Gala like the next week and has, her like dress or whatever. So she gets her FaceTime. And so like, that's disingenuous. And now she's trying to come on. She said nothing, not a tweet, not anything about, hey, there's a vote coming up. It's historic. So she couldn't even pick up her digital pen and say something. So that's on that side. On the other side, there is like, there was that thing that that they said insider trading, right? And so like, I don't know if you're aware, there was, insider trading, the people who are making the laws and they're privy to insider knowledge and they make that actionable in their stock trades, right? Sure. And so there are most of the people in Congress, the Senate, they actually trade on these, right? Mm-hmm. And although it's against ethics, it's not really illegal. And the thing that crushed me, who's that patch guy?
Crenshaw.
So I thought, okay, there's a guy, he's for us, right, on our side. What does he say? He says, no, man, we don't make enough money and we need to keep that rule in place so that we can at least trade and make a little bit of money. I think they make more than $150K a year.
And they get lifetime medical care. They get the travel paid for.
Like, okay, that guy, obviously he's out for himself too. And I believe that those are two cases. And I think that you could probably apply that to every single person in government, honestly, who gets elected. And they're all that way. And, that those people are in power to have power and to make money, and that's it. And so I don't know how you fix that, but, at least we can have some better candidates. The RNC and the DNC, if it's Biden and Trump, like I'm absolutely ready to throw my vote away. Like I don't want either of those two clowns anywhere near the White House. And so, I am for anybody but those two. There's like those never Trumpers. I'm never those two guys, right? Isn't there a 40-year-old guy, gal around that can, be in politics that is, just a good person and says,
Yeah, but they won't get the support of all the sponsors to get all the marketing and the media and the campaign budgets to get it across.
It's sewn up, man. Yeah. What a hack. It all sucks.
Super frustrating. Let's talk about something more pleasurable because this will go down a hole really quickly.
Throw it in the trash can, man.
All right, let's talk about helicopters. Can you fly a helicopter?
I can fly a helicopter. Yes,
Did you learn how to fly?
The big question is, can you land a helicopter?
I can land a helicopter. Yeah, I'm super dangerous with one now.
Did you know how to fly a helicopter before you invested and or bought a helicopter company?
No.
You didn't?
I think that was the goal, is to try to like, hey, I want to learn how to fly a helicopter. And wow, that's a lot of money. I think it's better to try to buy a company.
I want the asset.
I'm going to be able to write it off.
Exactly. And so, honestly, that was not my idea. And my business partner at the time, Grant, he was totally on board with it. He flies anything that has, a propeller, whether it goes that way or that way. And he lived and breathed that company for a couple of years before, he called me up and said, hey man, where are you? And that company is in Chandler, Arizona, Rotorway International. Mm-hmm. And I just happened to be down at Eloy, Arizona, skydiving and playing in the wind tunnel, right? Mm-hmm. And he was like, you're there? Well, let me go down and explain to you what we have, right? And he wanted me to come in, value the company, be the chief operations guy, get some new blood into the company. They were working off like pen and pencil. And so getting that into, the computer age and, doing just-in-time management and all of those things, changing the shop floor and doing those things was important for the growth of the company. The company had stagnated for a period of about 15 years and was starting to go down. And so, they were looking for some renewed energy into the company, and Grant is that energy. And so he came down and explained this opportunity to us where we could take this helicopter, still can, by the way, take this helicopter, and it's experimental, put in a Rolls-Royce RR300 engine and make this a 2-seat turbine certified helicopter. every single place that teaches people how to fly helicopters would love to have a couple of those in their inventory to teach people how to transition from piston to turbine. It's a big deal.
So the helicopters you're making are those little bubbly looking ones with the little piston engines on them.
It is not the bubbly looking one you're thinking of. That is Robinson.
Okay.
And let me tell you about Robinson Helicopter. They make more helicopters than every other helicopter company combined.
Yeah.
They're amazing. And they are certified helicopters. The difference between certified helicopter and experimental helicopter is not what you think. When you hear certified, you think, oh, genuine article. And when you hear experimental, you think janky. It's actually almost the exact opposite, because when you certify anything through the FAA, you can't change anything on that model from that point forward. It has to be the original OEM manufactured equipment, and nothing can change about that, 1972 Cessna Skymaster. It's exactly the same as it was in 1972. Where all the innovation happens is in the experimental industry. That's where they're free to put in the latest, greatest tech. And so when you look at the inside of a rotorway, it is tech savvy. Heads up glass displays. It is an amazing piece of engineering. And it's because they are free to use the latest, greatest technology, right? But it's experimental because, well, we don't know if that technology works well together, right? So
because the FAA, a government agency, hasn't gone through their process to certify it yet.
That's
and
right.
taken their pound of flesh to get it.
And they do. It costs upwards of $20 million, would be the cheapest that you could do to certify an aircraft.
What?
Yeah.
Any aircraft.
Yeah, any aircraft, period.
And what is that money for?
It's to make sure that your manufacturing process can be duplicated from start to finish, from that raw material that you get in the door to when it comes out, a complete helicopter. That process needs to be certified, and there are many, many things that need to occur to the FAA's satisfaction in order to do that. And so that's why it costs so much money and years, man. Yeah,
I didn't know it was $20 million
at least.
But is that $20 million what goes to the FAA, or is that the overall
No.
cost?
In fact, very few. I don't even know what the fee is. It's so inconsequential. I have no idea what the fee is for certifying an aircraft. It's not small, but in comparison to what you need to do, it's a tiny number. Okay. It's that know-how to get that manufacturing process to the FAA standard that is the difficult thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. But we bought the company on Valentine's Day, 2007. And 2007 is, a pretty pivotal year in financing. And so the bottom falls out in 07, 08, and we got our line of credit pulled. And so when we're in the middle of that restructuring process, they said, oh, hey, the bank said, we're taking that money back, that line of credit, and forget about it. And so, you can try to sue us, but that's not going to work. We have bigger fish to fry, this whole housing thing. And so we immediately pivoted and started opening up offices in overseas, right? China, South Africa. And we basically just made a pivot to the short term to just try to sell as many helicopters as we can and save the company. And we did. And we exited that with our shirts, pretty much.
So what's one of those helicopters go for?
$150K.
Really, for a helicopter?
Yeah.
I thought it'd be.
Give him a call.
I thought it'd be way more than that.
Now,
is
here's
that
the trick with experimental.
Now with all the bells and whistles on it?
No. So here's the trick, and maybe it's more. Maybe it's 200 now.
Yeah.
This was 07, where it's 150K. So maybe it's 250.
Okay.
But here's the rub. Experimental, wherever you get it, planes, helicopters, you have to put it together yourself. It comes as a kit. And so you basically get a helicopter in a box and you have to put it together. They have videos that you see, watch one, do one, but you are putting together your own helicopter.
And then you cannot use those for commercial purposes, correct?
You cannot. Toys for boys, toys for girls, that's about it. Right? And so you can't really use those to do anything like ferry passengers and, nothing like that.
If you wanted to do like power line inspections up in the mountains or anything like that.
Can't do it with that.
Wow, it's crazy.
Yeah. So it's a toy, super fun toy. Grant Norwitz and I helped about this much. We had a hangar at Boeing Field and we said from crate to hover in a month. So you can do it very quickly, but we had 4 people really dedicated to building that to the best of our ability. And we went from crate to hover. And
you really, it's not like just in a light kit. Like you can just you put the doors on it, put the skids on it, some wheels and some lights, and you're good to go.
No, most people take years to put them together.
What? Yeah. 150 grand a year.
Yeah. So it's the person who, worked at Boeing, as a retired engineer, kids out of the house, mom says, what are you going to do? And he's like, well, I always wanted to learn to fly, oh, a plane costs that much. What does is there a cheaper way to get into it? And they, little by little, oh, I'm an engineer, I could put this together. So their garage becomes, the factory for their aircraft. And, they just tinker on it. They tinker on it until they get it done. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's part of the experimental world. What is actually buildable? They say 450 hours for a rotaway to get from crate to hover. So 450 hours into it, no matter how you slice it, you can build your helicopter. Yeah.
This story just keeps getting better and better. I didn't realize that. I thought it was just the helicopter comes wrapped in a bubble, on a trailer. You see them getting towed down the highway all the time. I just imagine you just come off your factory line, wrap it in plastic, tow it to somebody's airfield, and here you go. Here's your helicopter.
It kind of makes sense, though. I hate to be that guy, but it totally makes sense, because if it's not FAA certified, who's going to insure that company to deliver a finished product to somebody?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, bro, I didn't sell you a helicopter. I sold you parts.
That's exactly right.
You bought it. You made a helicopter.
Yep. And the margin on those is the margin on most aviation companies is actually in the parts. Yeah. So, they sell you an aircraft, certified or experimental, and you're flying that around. The annual comes around, and then you have to get the parts, right? And so most of the time, that helicopter or airplane is at cost or near cost. And it's, almost a loss leader to get the parts business, which is forever.
And then how long did you do that?
So 2009. So
about 2 years.
Yeah. And honestly, Grant Norwitz was the brainchild behind that. And I was lucky enough to have him bring me along on that and value the company and see my value in being in that company. Yeah. So I was the chief operations guy there for a couple of years.
Yeah. And then he drug you onto another endeavor, or was that on your own?
No. So I said, hey, I want to do this skydiving thing, right?
Uh-huh.
And that was flip it over, right? So Grant Norwitz was around the edges of the indoor skydiving piece in iFly, and I was the driver for sure. And so 2009, I called up Alan Metney, who is the owner. Now he's the executive chairman of the board for iFly, and said, hey, man, why isn't there an iFly here in Seattle? And he was like, well, because nobody's been able to pull it off. And I was like, oh, I'm your man.
So for those of you guys who understand, iFly is the mechanical tunnels which people jump in, right? To simulate your skydiving without the actual fear of falling out of an airplane.
Exactly. We just removed the whole fear piece and we kept the whole fun piece. Yeah. And seriously, iFly is the best way to experience free fall. And nobody in free fall today who's in competition has not spent a ton of time in a wind tunnel perfecting what they do to take it to the air. There is really no way that you can do that, compete at top levels in skydiving without having a ton of wind tunnel time.
Yeah, that's my coaches are like, Griff, you need about 20 minutes of time and you're good to go.
Right. Yeah. So, hey, let's go.
I'm into it.
Right.
Threaten me with a good time.
We did that once. We need to make that more.
Twice. Yeah. I'm into it, dude. Yeah. I got a helmet now. I'm good to go. I got my flight seats on the way.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Just right now I'm working on sit flying. So that's my.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So that's, I'm just working to learn how to sit. And Andy just rolls his eyes. He's talking about skydiving. Shove Zach out of an airplane.
Are you really going to talk about
No, last year it was the 18 van. It's just whatever it is. When Griff gets the thing, it'll come in and be like, okay, I want to talk about now it's jumping out of
the van's getting ready to get finished. You saw it parked outside.
I did see it. Yeah. I was like, oh yeah. Does it have, what kind of engines does that thing have in there? Can you squeal the tires and blah, blah, blah?
Yes, very much so. But I've got a plan for it. It involves an airplane and parachutes. So
I would love to be on that.
And fire.
Yeah. And Luke is on
and
that,
fire,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's the man.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
So you've been doing iFly. How many iFlies have you done?
So owned a couple and just finished building my 16th. And I'm on to my 17th now. So, what I do is I owned iFly Seattle Indoor Skydiving. I had a couple of partners. And I owned that from 11 to 14. Mm-hmm. I sold that to the parent company for stock in the parent company. I was a VP at iFly. I built, during that time, I probably built a dozen from 14 to 18 iFlies. And then I got my stock bought out. I used that to, go in with another wind tunnel, did that, sold that. And then I've been helping people with their dream of making iFly, something that they want to do as a franchisee. And so I just finished opening up iFly Colorado Springs, it is the most beautiful wind tunnel in the entire country. It has, most iFlies have 5 meters of glass, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's seamless glass all the way around 5 meters. This has an additional 42 feet of glass. So it's almost 100 feet of glass.
What?
Yeah, right?
So when those guys are pulling off those moves, they just rocket way up?
Way up. You can see them the whole way, man. There's stadium seating there. There's food and beverage, which is, brand new for an iFly in the United States, only one. And so they're thinking about having competitions there and doing
As they should. Those competitions are rad.
They are, man. Like watching people fly around at 120 miles an hour, 160 miles an hour. It's amazing. Like they are amazing flyers. And, I'm a shadow of what they are. I'm a pretty advanced flyer, but what they do is just mind-blowing, man.
It's 21st century synchronized swimming where everybody can see it. Like when you see them going around, like the way I think about skydiving is like instead of water, you're just moving through air. It's the same as water.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
So you're just like driving your boat with your body, through gaseous water, right? Yeah. And just how you do it. But like the way those guys do it, just like the finite muscle movements and just how they figure it all out and on time.
At 160 miles an hour, you move your hand this way, you're going that way. Yeah. It's mind-blowing. The little bit of movement gets a lot of action, right? And 160 miles an hour, they're flying in a tube at 160 miles an hour. And, they do it safely. It's unbelievable. It blows me away to this day. Like I watch that and go, that is amazing. And it is. So super fun thing. I only do fun things pretty much.
And so what do you need to do if you hear this and you're like, I want to go do it?
Just look on, iflyworld.com and go in there and say, oh, where's the closest wind tunnel to me or facility to me? There's probably one nearby if you live near a major city. And then go in, take your family,
So are there any weight requirements on it?
There are. So, we say 250, 300. That's about the max that you can be. And the reason is not because the wind can't pick you up at that. We can take 6 people and fly them on their heads. Power is not the issue. The issue is safety, right? So at 300 pounds, the instructor has to keep a hold of you and understand where your body is. And if you do something wrong, he has to be able to react to that and manage it appropriately. Yeah. And so... we say if you're 300 pounds, we'll figure something out. And we actually can do things if you're over 300 pounds. If you can get down onto the ground yourself and get back up yourself, we could fly you.
Yeah, I mean,
it takes more time.
Well, the challenge is I got a lot of friends, like bigger friends who were just like breachers, but they're strong men or muscle men. And,
that's different.
And they, they can't go skydiving because they just punch out the tandem weight limit. They're just too big. Yep. For the conventional skydiving system. But like, well, how can we go enjoy this together and go get into a tunnel? But, if you can do it and you're still athletic.
So we've flown most of the Seahawks. So if you're athletic, I say most. We've flown some of the Seahawks, right? But if you're athletic, it's very different. You know exactly where to put your body and it's much safer.
Okay.
So, we'll work with anyone. Like, quite honestly, we fly. My favorite night is actually All Abilities Night, where people who have been confined to a wheelchair get to fly. That's probably super cool. It's way cooler than that. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. And
dude, how come you haven't invited me to that?
Right? Yeah, not a dry eye in the whole place, man. It's fantastic. Yeah, I love it. For the most part, I make smiles all day. Yeah. You're changing people's destiny. But every once in a while, I get that little lick where I think we might have changed that person's life. And that's super rewarding. I really enjoy that, man.
No, it's just I've had this conversation, oddly enough, like multiple times in the last couple of days, but a lot of depression going around.
But why?
Well, I mean, just, you take whatever it is, whether it's the Afghanistan, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Corona, whether it's the economy, whether it's your job, it's the price of fuel, whatever it is, like winter, right? Seasonal acute depression up here. But just having something that like makes you happy, even if you experience it for 30 seconds, you know that it's there.
Yeah.
And it gives you something to aim toward to go do it again. So those moments where you get somebody weightless out of a wheelchair where they're not feeling that pressure, like, they're hunting for that next one.
That's right.
Right. And it keeps them driving forward. Like, for example, right now, like I got COVID-15, right? Like I put on the extra weight, but my back hurts. It's like, well, I need to shave this weight off because like my back just hurts. So, I want to be able to skydive better, or I want to be able to go run or hike or climb. Because I have those pinnacle moments in my head, it forces you to like take discipline in other areas of your life and to see your way out of that difficulty. And it just applies in so many different ways.
Yep.
Yeah. And like you guys are doing it. That's super cool. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, right on.
Now, if you don't invite me, we're not going to be friends anymore.
I'll invite you to the next one.
Please. Yeah.
Right on. You gained 15 pounds during COVID?
Yeah. I got it in like mid-January, I think. Well, I think the majority of us got it. And then it was just like exhausting.
It just came on this winter, basically, right?
Yeah.
You put it on.
Yeah, it's exhausting, man. That was the hallmark of when I got COVID. It's exhausting. I spent 10 days in bed.
Yeah.
Just tired.
Yeah.
Wake up tired.
And then I'm going to film school. So I just was like, all right, well, I'm going to watch all these films we started talking about. I got into watching Ozark. And so I binge watched all 4 seasons of Ozark while eating ramen and all the other comfort food and all the carbs that were making me feel good. And I walked out of that, popped out last month in the spring. I hopped on the scale and I thought, I'm too big.
Yeah. Well, diet and exercise, they ebb and flow. And so, if you've been fit once, you can be fit again. And if you haven't been fit, you can get fit. You just need to know the prescription. So I'm sure that you'll strip that back off in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I'm down 3 pounds this week already. Yeah. I'm like, all right.
What's your diet, man? What do you?
I do the intermittent fasting. So
yeah,
I'm a big fan of like just tricking your body to fuel sources. And people are like, what do you mean? It's like, do you ever see like in the old history books of Native Americans, do you ever see any overweight ones?
Right.
Right. And then do you ever see them running if it weren't to like kill an animal? Like everything was slow as smooth as fast. And like, because although they were eating a lot of fatty stuff, right? Not a lot of carbohydrates, just a lot of fat, but they were just physically fit, but they could go over the long run. They could haul a teepee and their family across the plains for hundreds of miles. But if they needed to sprint for 10 or 15 minutes to run down an elk, like they could do it.
Yep.
And the whole trick is like, and I learned this during the Master Fitness program in the Army, but zone 2 is your fat burning zone. As soon as you trip over into zone 3, your body wants to trip over and burn carbohydrates and sugars for fuel. Mm-hmm. So if you force your body like into working out, and like it sucks because it's so boring, but it's like between 107 and 127 beats a minute for me.
Really?
Right. And it's
how long?
You need to go over a half an hour to get it to really set in. And then once you cross 45 minutes and your body really starts uptaking like the fat, and then you have to do that before you eat anything in the morning. Yeah. So it's an
doing it fasted is a big deal.
Fasted cardio. So your body's already short on sugars and carbs.
Yeah.
Has to go to fat for fuel, put it in a fat fuel, like burning workout. And then you feed it more fat with the bulletproof coffee. And then your body just becomes like a fat burning machine. But like the sad part about it is if you go for any kind of endurance event, like 15 or 20 minutes after that, you're going to be gassed. And so it is cool that you got to pick it.
My experience is completely different than yours based off what you just said.
Elaborate.
Yeah.
So COVID for me, I was 287 in January 2020.
What?
I'm 205 now.
Yeah.
Right. So like 80 pounds across 2 years. And it kind of did this, but in the last year it dropped 50.
Yeah, he's a different human being.
And like in my 30s, yeah, man. How did you do it? So in my 30s, like when I was a paint contractor, I was between 185 and 200, like doing a lot of yoga. Like I shouldn't be a 240 pound dude. Like my bone structure can't handle it. But a combination, like I started with, I was getting up, I was working out a little bit in the morning. Well, I should back up. If you eat less than you burn, you will lose weight. Okay. Everything after this is bullshit unless you do that. Like, period, right? Like, you have to operate in a deficit. But I did the bulletproof thing for a while. I was getting up working, and that actually, like, everything was coming off and it was working and whatnot. Did a very, very loose intermittent fast, but I think the reason that it worked for me, what I found, and this is just my experience, was if you say I'm only going to eat in this, for me, I did a 6-hour window, roughly.
A 6-hour window?
6 to 8. Yeah. But generally was trying to do 6. It was so much easier for me to eat less than I burned across 6 hours than across 12.
Yeah.
So if it's like, you know, I'm a big dude. I burn easily 3,500 calories a day, you know, by just walking around town and not doing anything really crazy. So if I want to stay around 2 to 2,200 calories across 8 hours in little bits, that's a pain in the ass. It's just frustrating. It's like, I'm going to eat this little tiny thing and then I'm going to be hungry and then eat this other little tiny thing and then I'm going to be hungry. But if I cram that down to 6 hours, it's kind of like, and I love coffee. It's like I can drink as much fucking coffee as I want.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to eat and I'm going to feel full and I'm going to enjoy it. And it might be a little decadent. And I like to cook too and like make some rad shit and maybe eat too much of it in that setting, but stay within my bucket. I go to bed, I feel full. I'm not like constantly fighting this.
So you'd have your bigger meal before?
Yeah, I went between 3 and 9 o'clock.
Okay, 3 and 9. Yeah. That was your time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I tried to do. And some days it was noon to 8, and some days it was 4 to midnight. And so, like, I'm not that regimented about it, but like it was kind of in there. And it was great. But what I found was, like, exercising fasted. Like, my exercise was either just walking around town. I never drive, or mountain biking.
Yeah.
So like even now,
I'm sure as a mountain biker, because you got those long levers.
Yeah, it's getting good again. And but even now, like, I haven't eaten today, and I can leave here and go run a 2-hour, 18-mile, 2,500 vertical foot ride on hour 18, and I don't. It's weird. I don't feel like I haven't bonked yet with it, right?
Well, heck, it's working.
It's working for me, but we also like, my wife read this great book about it and she got like super nerdy into it and it's been working really well for her. I was just like, I'm going to eat in this window and I'm going to try and eat less, and that's it. But that's like my personality versus hers. Like, she has to learn everything, and I just kind of have an idea and start doing shit.
Yeah.
That's how it works with most things.
Yeah. So I have an idea and start doing shit, and away we go.
This is how it works in principle. I got this.
Yeah, I got it. And but one thing she did bring up about it was the idea that it's so rare that you like consume a calorie and burn that calorie. It's like it's converted, it goes to your liver, it goes through this whole process, then it gets reaccessed, and that takes time.
Yeah.
So that's where like carb loading and that whole concept just like started to make sense. So then it does make sense to me, where if I'm eating in the evening, then I'm sleeping all night, and that's like low heart rate stuff. Then I walk over here and I sit on my ass and I do shit, and that's low heart rate stuff. And I basically just filled my liver with a whole bunch of insulin.
Yeah.
It's waiting to get turned loose, and then go crush it for 2 hours. Pretty hungry at the end of that 2 hours, but I'm not like out of energy, like, right?
Yeah.
So it's a trip how it works.
So as far as diet, when I said, hey, what's your diet like? You went immediately to the intermittent fasting. And obviously that's a super big component of what you did to lose your weight, right?
Right. But were you talking about what we eat?
Well, yeah. I am. Okay. Yeah, I was. But I mean, I intermittent fast as well. Right. I do 16-8, but I'm not religious about it.
Sure.
You know, I eat my first meal somewhere around noon, and I stop eating my last meal somewhere around 7, 8, you know. And, you know, it changes from day to day. You know, I do 2 workouts a day. I do a functional fitness workout, you know, combining weights and things like that. I do usually a single movement as well during that workout. And then I do jujitsu. And so like those 2 together almost every day is what I do for exercise. But, you know, my diet, I think diet works different for everybody. I'm interested to see what both of you say about that.
Yeah. Like, it's tough because maybe like young entrepreneurs and everything else, like I eat 75% of my meals standing up.
Yeah, well, that's
right,
not bad.
And on the run.
That's bad.
So I try to like meal prep as much as I can on Sundays, and so it's a lot of like diced and roasted vegetables, green beans, asparagus, zucchini, squash, sweet potatoes.
Yep.
And then I'll make some carbs just in case I'm going to do like a physical activity where I know I'm going to be like working all day.
And what's a carb?
Usually like rice or sweet potato.
Yep.
And then a lot of chicken, so just organic chickens, and then a hunter, so it's elk. But I didn't bring down an elk last year. I killed a bull, like a cow.
Yep.
So I'm going to be eating a lot more beef this year. So I'm curious to see how much different I feel changing over to eating beef.
And beef, I mean, is that like what kind of beef? There's a big range there. You can get it.
He was a big old mean like Texas Longhorn bull.
Cool.
Yeah. And so I don't know, like, my girlfriend's parents are cattle ranchers.
Oh, right on.
And I was, last year with
Afghanistan. Off to them.
Yeah. Last year with Afghanistan going on, I just didn't have time to get out and go drop an elk.
Yeah.
So that's what we eat, is we just eat elk all year long. And like my freezer was getting empty, so I had to put some red meat in. And so I called her parents, like, how much do you get a bowl? And they're like, oh, normally it's like $1.25 on the hoof, but we got this one, we'll give you a deal. And so I ended up getting it. And like, by the time we processed it all the way out, it was like $4.40 a pound. And then, but we split it between 5 families. So I went out and killed it and quartered it and brought it back and hung it in the butcher shop. And then we have my annual sausage party at my house.
Making sausage.
Yeah. And so everybody comes in and we quarter and fillet it out in vacuum sealers and bags. And it's just a big party. But, we get to fill 5 freezers for the year for like
right on.
$4 a pound while supporting a small business.
Yeah.
But I think I got the reason why I got the deal is because that bull was just straight up mean. Like I showed up at the house like right after, like literally the cattle truck was pulling out, and this
does
thing
that make
was,
the meat tough?
I gave him about half an hour, 45 minutes to chill out, and then he just ducked his head to come at me. Shook his hoof, and
that was the last duck.
Yeah, I had a suppressed 300 blackout, 220 green, and I just hit him right in the spine, and he went right down. And then he was done within 30 seconds. So it was a nice ethical thing, and we've had pieces of the meat, and everybody who's had it says it's
good,
banging, and then
good.
And letting it hang is good too. So
yeah,
but it's mainly to answer your question on diet is meat and vegetables,
right? And would you say more veggies per like plate portion?
Cover 2/3 of your plate in fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
Like whenever you do it. Yeah.
You and I are on a very similar page. I do very little like breads, and I just cut out sugar altogether recently, and that's a pretty interesting ride.
How was that? Elaborate.
So I just went cold turkey. I said, I want to, never in my life, honestly. I mean, even, in C rations when I first joined the military and then MREs, there's sugar, right? A decent amount of it, right? So I never really, it's in everything. So I never really consciously ever cut it out of my diet. So I'm an American. It's been always in my diet, not big, but I love ice cream and I love cookies, especially.
Are you talking processed sugar, or like you still eat fruits and stuff?
I don't. Like, I figured if I'm going to go, I might as well go, right? And so I just cut it all out. And
so you don't eat fruit or any kind of natural sugars?
Not right now. So this is like just no sugar. I just want to figure out, like, what was that doing? How does that make my brain feel? And so I'm going to give it, 45, 60 days to kind of figure out if there's anything there. Do I feel any different? Do I look any different? Do I perform any different? Right. So that's kind of like, how do you look? How do you feel? How do you perform? Right.
Yeah.
Like those.
What have you noticed so far on the performance?
I've been crushing workouts more. I don't know if that's a coincidence. I have a device, the Whoop Strap, which really helps me dial into exactly how well I do on workouts. And so I'm interested to see that over the long term. It hasn't been long enough yet to really put up a metric, but like I'm doing much better, probably like 30% better on how I perform against other athletes that are in my gym. I'm lucky in that my gym, we have metrics for everything. And so every workout, has a time or amount lifted or things like that. And they have that, so I get to understand what that is versus other athletes. And generally, I am usually like, top third dude. And so, but like yesterday I was number 1. That never happens.
Attaboy.
Yeah, right? Like, and, you know, and I seriously went after it. It was, you know, a 16-minute workout where we're doing front squats and burpees, right? For 16 minutes. And I just went full tilt for 16 minutes, never stopped. Like I've never been able to do that before. Maybe it's a mind thing too. I don't know.
You know, it's interesting because I remember in high school wrestling, like this is back in the 90s, and Gatorade was a thing. And I'd take powdered Gatorade and I'd shove it in my, you know, and that was like my pre-match thing. And there was like a series of matches where I would crush somebody through the second period. And by the third period, I could barely move. And I think it's maybe some scientific comments on it. I think it was a sugar crash. And as soon as I stopped doing that, then I was performing all the way through the end of the third period.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know, right? So maybe there's something to it.
Maybe.
I don't know, but I can't give up pineapples and mangoes. That's just
no, I get it. No, I can't. I'm actually looking forward right now to bringing that back into my diet, at least the fruit. I don't want to do any of the refined, but, you know, apples, and you can smell them now. It's like when you open a ration and you're hungry, like in the field, like
you can smell that peanut butter from like 40 feet away. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's that right now for me, for like any kind of citrus fruit, somebody's opening an orange, so I can smell that from a mile away.
Oh, like
that's good.
And you know, I don't know if there's any truth to it, but somebody said that, you know, sugar is more addictive than cocaine. And I can just anecdotally, for me, I know as soon as I get into one piece of sugar, I'm like, oh, that whole bag is gone.
Right? No. Yeah, exactly. Oreos,
one gummy bear, it's 50 gummy bears.
For me, it's Oreos, man. I'll eat them all, the whole box. Yeah. You know, if I get the Costco big one thing there, I will go through a couple of logs a day. You know, that's horrible, right? So that was actually then that I was like, I need to not do that. So that led me to this journey. Yeah. What about your diet? What's that like?
I kind of eat what I want.
Right on.
Like, after you guys are like all this structure and planning and all that, and well, like Griff's laughing because he just knows me. Right?
Well, it's no, but I mean, like the fundamentals of dieting and diet
is eat what you want.
Eat what you want, but as long as you eat less than you're consuming, or, you know, like, eat less than you're burning,
right?
You're going to lose weight. If you're on par, you're going to stay at weight. Right? It's sheer.
But as far as like actual diet goes, like for I have
a little bit beyond that, but
but I have to balance it also with like, you know, what my wife likes, because I'm also somebody that's like, I'll eat the same thing for 30 days. Like I'll dial into a thing and be like, I'm making that chicken that way and that salad kicks ass and I'm making this loaf of bread, and like I make all my own food and I enjoy it and it's therapeutic. Like food. Yeah. Soup to nuts is therapy for me.
Yeah, right on.
So like I'll take an hour and a half and cook dinner every night because it's awesome. Like actually doing it. So in that respect, there's some creativity in there and whatnot, but she also doesn't want to have the same thing over and over and over and over again. And at the same time where I'm like, you know, the joke is like, she'll go eat candy and I have meat snacks. Like, I'll take a bowl of cold chicken and just sit there and eat it like candy.
So sugar is not really your thing.
I like it.
Yeah.
But I would rather eat a whole bunch of like salami and cold cuts rather than candy.
And do you think it's maybe a salt preference? Salt,
possibly. Although I love berries.
Okay.
Like
he'll crush a bag of cherries if you stop at the roadside stand on the side of the road.
Rainier cherries, pretty good.
The best food on the planet are raspberries, period. Like that's my desert island food. I would just sit there and
interesting.
Like to the point that it's a little weird. Like I come back from Montana sometimes and my folks would give me, you know, like a half flat of raspberries. I'd literally eat a half flat of raspberries in 45 minutes in the car driving back and not get the shits. Just be like, yep. All day long.
Just Andy poop in the woods.
No, it's just like, I just fucking love berries, right? Now my thing is like the big bags of like frozen mixed berries and raspberry yogurt. And you mix that together and then the yogurt freezes on the berry and it's this like little nuggets of awesomeness in a bowl. So good. So good. So like that's candy to me, is that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But again, it's just, we kind of make what we want. There's plenty of times where it's like, what are you making? And it's just a big pile of pasta with some weird sausage on it that's like not anything that's all that amazing at all. And sometimes it's, you know, the best salad I've ever come up with in my life that's mind-blowing and it's great, but we just kind of roll with it. It's
And that's good. Variety is good, but like, I think that your wife likes more variety than you do from what I gather.
Yeah, she inspires it anyway. I'll get into a thing and then just like, yeah, I'm eating that and I like it. And I'll just like keep eating it and then I'll get something else. But she'll be sitting there like, flying through Pinterest, like, oh, this sounds good. And I don't like make that. It's just, I'm not a cook that grabs that recipe and then makes that thing. I like look at the picture and get the basic ingredients and like, okay, I got this and go figure it out.
You had said that, both of you had said, if you eat less than what you expend, then you're going to lose weight. It's true. But the things that you eat do matter a ton. Like
totally.
Glycemic impact, if you eat something that has a high glycemic impact, a disproportionate amount of those calories go into fat.
Correct.
And, if you have something with low glycemic impact, then less go into fat.
Sure.
I think that that's important because, right now, dementia, type 2 diabetes, that syndrome X, that whole syndrome of, what America has is because of this.
It's food policy.
High glycemic impact foods, right? So staying away from those is part of the deal.
It's the old perimeter method of grocery shopping. Yeah. Just go surf around the outside and you're going to be all right.
Yep. That's right. Yep.
So stay away from the bakery though. Those free cookies they offer at the bakery. I remember when I never knew. I grew up my entire life and I have kids and my dad's like, "Oh, Dad, you get free cookies at Safeway." I'm like, "No, you don't." And they're like, "Oh yeah, watch this." And they just walk out.
You didn't know that?
Nope.
Amazing.
I was 37 years old before I figured that out.
Oh yeah, man.
That's crazy. Good for you.
So speaking of variety,
yeah,
you've added some more variety into your life professionally, and so you've gone from Green Beret to some commercial real estate stuff to helicopters to indoor skydiving, and then now into surfing.
Into surfing, man.
So indoor surfing.
Yeah.
Is your thing now. So like you took skydiving, something that's usually unattainable or more expensive or out of the reach for most people, and put it in areas where they can get to it. And surfing, if you live more than 20 miles away from an ocean, in a very specific section of ocean, you can't surf. So you guys are bringing it to other people.
It's true, man. And so, there are two kinds of surf. There's large format surf and there is small format surf. Large format surf is dominated by the 15 acres with you're creating a wave every minute. Maybe you can create it every 30 seconds and you're putting 3 surfers on there or 4 surfers or as many as you can fit. Right. But the throughput on 15 acres is not many people can surf on that. And so the payback period for developing a 15-acre park, I haven't worked the numbers on that because that's not my business model. But honestly, that to me seems fairly sketchy for a payback period. The small format has been dominated by flow rider and cruise ship kind of things.
That's like the reverse high performance slip and slide.
It is the reverse high performance slip and slide close ripper offer, right?
Yeah. Yes. Where can I invest?
Sign me up. Yeah. And there is one in Ogden, Utah. There is a skydiving and iFly skydiving facility, and in the same place, it's called Solomon Center. There is a flow rider, and when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh my gosh, indoor surfing! This would be great." And I said, "Oh, give me an hour, whatever." Like 15 minutes on that thing, and like my back was shot, my head, and I was like, "Oh, this is not something that I can do." And so, that has been the market for surfing, unless you're going to surf in the water until now. These folks called CityWave have invented this product, which is deep water surfing, real surfboards, real surf, real wave on a standing wave in something that's the size of a pool, 33 feet wide, 72 feet long. And that thing makes a wave that's anywhere from about 2 feet, maybe a little bit more, to about 6 feet a wave. A
6 foot waves.
It's big, man.
A head high wave is legit.
Right? And so this is in Europe, and there's a couple other places. Tokyo's got one. Israel's got one. Europe has like 10, maybe 15, right? And CityWave is beginning to be known as, this is the product, right, for standing wave surfing. You can, experts use it to perfect tricks, and new people use it to learn how to surf. I can teach you how to surf from zero to standing on a board and coming back and forth in about an hour.
So can you surf any kind of board in there? Longboard or shortboard?
Yeah, you can. Okay. Right? But mostly it's shorter boards. just because, the format for tricksters and things like that is more appropriate for shorter boards. But you can do stand-up paddleboarding in there.
Okay.
Yeah. So, that is super cool and super new. And so, I am blessed that that Grandscape, which is in the middle of Dallas, the owners of Grandscape, which is a subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway, they are building this mecca in Dallas that has, an observation wheel that's as big as the one in Seattle. They have an Andretti cart in there. They have, a furniture store called Nebraska Furniture Mart, which is like, it's millions and millions of, maybe not millions, it's million square feet of furniture. Like
that's a lot of furniture.
Yeah, it's like one of the biggest ones in the world. There's a Shields sporting goods store, which is the biggest one in the world, right? It's right there at Grandscape. There's 15 restaurants. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. They have an arena that they have for like concerts and things like that. And they called myself and my business partner, Patton, and they said, hey, look, we would like to do this standing wave surfing here as an amenity for Grandscape. And are you willing to, be a tenant in our property? And like, they had us at hello. They're fantastic people. And so we have Fireside Surf now, which is just in the final stages of financing, which is always the super difficult part.
Now, where's the location of this again?
It's in Dallas, right?
In Dallas,
so,
but where
what's
in Dallas?
In the Colony.
Okay.
So Dallas is in the center, and at about 12 o'clock is the Colony. Frisco, that area right there, Irving, Frisco for sure, and the Colony, and it's right there.
Okay.
And it's, there's a Top Golf across the street. There's an iFly right down the street. And that iFly crushes it. I'm sure the Top Golf does too. Everything in Grandscape is just amazing, crushing it. They saw, I think, 9 million people on Grandscape last year during COVID.
Wow.
They expect to see like 20 million people a year at that area. Wow. And it's just amazing. And so super blessed to be able to do the first concept there. And it's basically that surf equation with really good food and beverage. So that is Fireside Surf. We'll be in the design in like a month.
Okay. Should
be open in like next April. So that is the next big thing.
So you spend a lot of time in Texas, huh?
A lot. Yeah. I'll be living there pretty much.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, right on. You want to surf?
No, I mean, everybody talks about moving down to Texas. I got a lot of friends who have moving down there.
Yeah, Texas or Florida all of a sudden.
Yeah, we're moving our primary charity from Aid Afghanistan to Education to One More Wave, which is a veteran surf organization. Because obviously all the schools in Afghanistan are closed.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, so we I met these guys, Alex and Rob, a couple of years ago, and they're just a really cool organization. And finally, we went down and went to one of their events.
Yeah,
and it just every third Saturday, people show up in a parking lot. Everybody's talking smack. They're all putting on wetsuits and they're getting on the water and having a good time together. And it didn't really dawn on me. Like, it was cool. Like, I was having a great time. And then this guy, Jose, rolls up in this huge F-250 jacked up. And he rolls in, he's blaring, he wheels right into the handicap spot. I'm like, who's this chucklehead? And he gets out. He's missing one arm and both legs.
Oh.
I'm like, holy crap. And he gets out and he throws on like a prosthetic and he's, hopping around and he's sliding on all of his gear. And then his swim partner, Joe, like, helps him up, like carries him down, throws him on a board, and he's like belly surfing. And so they have a triple amputee guy, Jose, who's just super inspirational.
What a stud.
Won world this year. Won world championship. Those two, yeah. One in like the I don't know the class of surfing, but obviously like the Paralympics, what would be the right
some sort of surfing Paralympics.
But it's cool because it's a team sport because you have a fully capable guy who's a vet and he's towing his buddy out and he's like, they're picking the right wave together and pushing him out. And then he went and won fucking worlds.
Yeah.
Right. And they'd been going at it for 3 years and they'd gotten beat, the first 2 years, but they were on the top, I think 3, they were on the podium. And this year they finally won it. And like to be able to see that and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And they started explaining to me how like surfing is the one sport that humbles me. Like it does. Every time I've gone surfing, wherever it's been on the world, it's always humbled me. I've gotten up on maybe 5 waves in my entire life.
Every day.
And I have suffered immensely for hours. Right. But I'm not going to let anybody I'm going to try. I will drink as much salt water as I need to, not to look like a pussy. Right. But like it literally humbles me. And then so like I have a hard time justifying spending, $1,600 for 2 wetsuits.
Yeah.
Throwing another like, $800 to $1,500 down on a board, to get out when the conditions are right, to go get humbled, right? I have a hard time justifying that. Now,
in Washington, where on a good day, the water's 58 degrees.
Yeah.
Oh, 58 is warm.
That's a good day up here. That's a good day up here.
Yeah. It's even, I've been in El Salvador surfing down there on some primo waves, and just even in just like a rash guard and shorts, I'm just getting worked.
Oh yeah.
I get it.
That's all there is to it.
The ending is exciting.
And I'm not a slouch. Like, I'm a pretty athletic dude. And to think like how intimidated I am by surfing. And now you get a guy take a leg, take an arm.
Yeah, right.
And think about how difficult that must be, or how intimidating that must be. And they're showing up at these events, and people are supporting them, getting them decked out with specialized wetsuits. If you have a lower leg prosthetic, like the pounds per square inch will actually punch holes in standard surfboards. They have to have Kevlar lined boards on the top. So they have to have shapers work with the vets to build them a custom board. And we've given away 1 board. I think we're working on 2 right now.
That has to be an expensive board, man.
Yeah. I mean, a couple grand. Yeah. 2-3 grand. Yeah. And we just like it. So flip-flops and surfing seem to go together. So we're committing to go down and serving barbecue and food. So if you're in San Diego every 3rd Saturday, come on out and support One More Wave. So it'll be a good time.
We got to have that as an integral part of what we're doing in Texas.
So I just had another Green Beret hit me up about that.
Yeah.
His name's Tom.
Right on.
So he's like, how do I get to be a part of this? And like, because I think he's doing maybe a competitive indoor surf thing. But it makes sense that, Dallas, Texas, everything else, like, and you talk about what was the name of it? The All Abilities Night?
Yeah, All Abilities Night.
That'd be rad.
Yeah. Because, you're saying that the surfing tools you all the time, right? So imagine if you could actually have a bar in front of you and hold on to that bar, because that is one of the possibilities. When we teach people how to surf, the first thing we do is stand them up on a surfboard, and they can hold this bar. Yeah. Right. And so they
standing waves, right?
Training wheels until, they're not bumping up against it, and they kind of get the feel of how to do that. And that really does speed the process. And so you can imagine that you could do something like that for anyone who has prosthetics and things like that, and make them much better, much faster. Right. That's cool, man.
Yeah. We'll get that hooked up. I'll make that introduction before you leave the office.
Yeah. Where's your friend Tom doing his thing?
Florida.
Right on.
Yeah. I'll link you guys up. I mean,
yes, please.
Yeah. You guys are cool.
We're cool.
Yeah. I mean, anything else you want to chat about?
We got on the diet thing, which is important to me, and physical fitness, which is important to me. Got any daily routines that you guys usually do? Folks are really interested in, like, what do you do in the morning? But do you have one?
So I've been off it for a bit, and I'm feeling it in my life.
Why?
I've been off mine for probably about like a month and a half, just a lot of travel and back and forth. But like, I have my daily journal. Like, so if you know me, I journal hard, and I go out my goals in the front of my journal, and then I plan out my weeks, and then every day I plan out my day the night before. And it really just helps me with traumatic brain injury and stuff. You have to like really focus your time so that way you're not missing things. And I've been off it for probably like the beginning of March, because I was doing some significant travel, and I'm feeling it now. Like, I'm feeling the effects of it. Like, literally I pull it out on my desk. I'm like, all right, I just got to get back into this. And as soon as I start banging out my intention for the day, the quality I need to cultivate to accomplish that intention, 3 things that I'm thankful for, like sort of the attitude of gratitude, and then good things that happened today. I leave like 4 spaces on that page. Because if you believe that good things are going to happen in the day, good things will happen in your day.
Yeah.
And then my game changer is like, what are the top 2 things that I got to get done today? And I'll try to accomplish those first. And then your to-do list ends when you die. Right. So it's just like, just don't be afraid of never having your to-do list all the way done. But like, what other little crappy tasks I got to like pay the bills, or give the dog the medicine, or do whatever.
Yeah.
You have that, and then just bang out on that. And what I just find is that, if you're constantly focused on your goal, right, and you're constantly driving an intention, and you're planning out your time, even ounces make pounds, inches make miles, like eventually you'll get there.
Yeah.
And that's essentially how we've done everything we've done here, is doing that. But that's generally my morning routine. Recently, it's been getting up, having a little coffee, and then I've been getting my fasted cardio on. So I head out the door, as soon as I get my first step. About 5:45, 6.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I get back, and then I sit down, and I've got my personal checklist, right, which is geared toward my list. But I have everything from, what my finances look like, house tasks, chores, is my bed made, is the kitchen clean, all
Do you
those.
make your bed every morning?
Every morning.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's like silly things, but like looking good's feeling good's doing good. So if you walk in and everything's a mess, your life's a mess, right? So do I have to maintain my vehicle, check on my accounts, check on my investments, what tasks do I need to get done for the family for the day? So I have like a personal checklist, and then I have my business checklist, which is, okay, what promotions are we running this week? What's on our front end of our website? What are we putting up on social media? And so those are like the typical things that I will go through first in the day, because I'm not a big fan of large course corrections.
Right.
In life.
Lots of little ones.
Yeah. So it's like stay on azimuth, like turn the steering wheel a little bit left, a little bit right, and you'll generally get there in time. Versus if you just don't pay attention to the boat and it drifts off course for a couple months, and then you're chaotic and you're lost. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Andy, what's yours?
Gas. No, this would be and there's not a lot of routine.
That's fine.
No, it's different. So, I mentioned before, there's like this 2-year run of like trying to drop this weight. And the real driver behind that was like all my suspension hurt. Ankles hurt, knees hurt. I love to snowboard. I'm actually pretty good at it when I can. Couldn't do it. Or at least I couldn't do it the way I know I could do it. I could never flip my brain into, no, dude, you just got to go and ride around, as opposed to actually ride and then hurt yourself because you're a whale. Like it's, Griff's been on the mountain with me, he knows. Like it's.
I've watched him take some epic crashes.
Yeah,
and really just
couldn't go, right? So that was the big driver of like, nothing really matters until like that number gets lower. Like you're losing the fight to gravity.
So that has been your intention in the morning.
That's just my general thing, is like, as long as that's coming down, and also knowing that I'm literally trying to uneat the elephant, like it's a big number. 80 pounds is a lot.
Yeah.
So it's huge. Like, that's not going to happen in a couple of months or even a year.
Grader. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Like it's a lot. So
think about it.
I'm just now getting to the point where things feel good enough that I feel like I can actually flip the wire back on from an aggressive standpoint and a charging standpoint. And I'm doing that on the mountain bike. Next winter I'll ride. There's still some stuff going on that's legitimate, like bone spur old guy shit that's happening in this ankle that I have to kind of monitor.
Yep.
And it's my front foot on a board, so I got to be careful with how I approach that. So as far as actual like fitness routine, all that stuff, I've just recently started doing some things in the morning again. Yep. A lot of that's just time and how I feel. Mm-hmm. But the main thing I want to do is I want to be basically hitting 50 miles a week on the bike across 3 to 5 days of riding. Like that just keeps me in enough of a rhythm that I think between what I'm eating and like my overall, just how my body feels, there's enough rhythm there that it's good.
Yeah, it's also where we live. That's like 3,000 to 7,000 vertical feet too.
Yeah,
so
right.
it's
this is a great place.
And we live down here, so I don't have to put the bike on a car. I can go from my house and be on trails, like and just go. So if that's 5 hours a week or 6 or 7 hours a week, that's the same as like taking the time to go to a gym 5 days a week. If you got to drive and whatnot, in that standpoint. And then as far as the rest of the I tried not to plan things as much as possible, mostly because my professional life requires me to plan things as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So when I like leave here or I leave my consulting work and I leave that stuff, I'm actually constantly pushing plans away and trying to create space. And then the stuff that I try and find myself doing gets me more into, I didn't really realize how much I liked the concept of flow state until I learned about flow state, but like snowboarding, mountain biking, all that stuff, just whatever it is, playing music that puts you now, right? You guys did it in the military. Somebody's shooting at you, you're right fucking now, right? Yeah. Like there's
not enough, especially flow state training. They don't,
not the training, but the experience.
Yeah, for sure.
The experience. So like my version of it and my version of danger around it is completely different than your experience. But those periods of time, you go and suck for an hour and a half climbing up something to get your 10 minutes of terrassing down it. but the 10 minutes is 10 hours of time. Like it's just a different experience. And so trying to kind of find those things.
Yeah.
And And I'm in a really just kind of weird spot with all of it right now. There's not a lot of rhythm to it or a lot of planning or really even a lot of understanding around what I'm doing other than big target hitting it, big picture stuff. But there's so much micro within everything that it's too easy for me to get too focused on it. And that's not healthy for me or the people around me. And I like.
What time do you get up in the morning?
5.
Okay, so pretty early.
4:35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you make your bed?
No, my wife's still in it.
That's a good reason.
No, I get up that early, honestly, so that I can do nothing for an hour.
Yeah.
And it's not like conscious nothing of meditation. It's just, I'm not a get up and go guy. Like I get up, I make coffee, and I'm like,
Are you? Do you think that you're grumpy in the morning if somebody gets you during that?
Like, yeah, you don't talk to them.
You're up 10 minutes.
Yeah. Generally, you stay on like a good 10-foot radius and don't ask a lot of questions for at least.
I'm just not useful, right? Like I'm really not useful, and now, if he would think that I'm grumpy in the morning because he gets up and fucking goes, and I don't. So it's like, he's going to get up, I'm in the middle of an hour of whatever, and we're on the road, and he's like firing at like normal speed, which I'm fine with when we're actually in that mode. But it's just like, bro, like you can squarely fuck off right now. Like, no, like
used to it.
You know better, right? Like, but that's also why I tend to try and get up before everybody, is so that I give myself that and don't have to interact in that way.
Sure.
And what's yours? What's your routine?
I get up and I make my bed pretty much immediately. My wife is not in it. She gets up at 4:30. Like she is a super early riser. That was another one of those checklists.
Attaboy.
Has to get up early, right? You know, the sleep until 10, that does not work for me. And I don't get up super early. Like used to get up earlier, 5:30, but now I'm a 6 guy, and so I don't get up super early. But when I get up with intention. I make my bed. I either go out on the balcony or, open up the windows to my bathroom, and I take 30 deep breaths, like super deep, and I exhale super deeply. And then I do between 25 and 35 push-ups, one set. This is all pretty intention, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I get in and I take a cold shower. And that cold shower is anywhere from 5 minutes on the short end to 10 minutes is fairly normal to 15 minutes, is at the outside. And then after that, I, get dressed. I make a cup of coffee for my wife and me. And then I usually get to work. Like that's usually how it is. And I do my workouts in the afternoon. So I'll start eating at noon. I won't work out until probably, 5 p.m. And I go, from 5 to 7 or 5 to 8, depending on what I'm doing. And then I come back and we'll have dinner and, that's it, Nice. But my morning routine has a lot of intention to it. But one of the things that I used to do that I don't do anymore, that COVID, I just can't get back into it, is meditation. And I miss it, but I don't miss it enough to do it. And I think that that's a shame, and I would like to change that. But, I have an app.
Yeah, I'm a Headspace guy. Like I was on my 30-day streak, and like I'm with you. COVID really ruined the.
Why is that? Like why did you lose your intention? Why did I lose my intention to meditate? I really, it's a little bit upsetting to me.
Well,
how easy is it to just sit there? Just go over there and sit there for 10 minutes, right? Can't you do that?
Well, because I did a lot of sitting there during COVID. I feel like I did a lot of sitting and thinking and pondering on things and restructuring life. It just. Yeah.
I would be interested to know in the comments how many other people lost their meditation, like that specifically. And I want to get it back, but obviously not enough to do it. Which, how hard is that to just do it?
Yeah.
Carve out 10 minutes in the morning.
Mine's been yoga. Like yoga was always my go-to workout for years. Because when I travel, I always travel with a yoga mat, because it's the one workout you can take with you everywhere.
Yeah.
No matter where you're at, you can always stop. I use an app.
Yeah.
I throw the headset in, I throw on some beats, and I was also pound out like half an hour to an hour, a flexibility workout or a cardio workout or a strength workout.
Yeah.
And I just lost it. I had all the time in the world to
you
yoga.
Don't do yoga anymore?
No, I do. I'm getting back into it. Good. So like skydiving is really forcing me to get back into it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I love yoga. I don't do enough of it. I do it once a week. It's not enough. Yeah.
I just had a thought of it. You just asked the question, right? Like, why was it so hard to effectively, intentionally do nothing? Like, create that space to,
Right.
but your problems pre-COVID were all incredibly familiar. And our problems during COVID was actually some of the most exciting shit I've experienced in my life. Because
Really?
like, well, sure, like really, man, like I had never turned on the TV and heard the government tell me not to leave my house.
True.
And what's going to happen tomorrow and what's going to happen the next day and what are the statistics saying and what are people saying. And now Seattle's turned into the Chaz and the BLM shit, and like society was ripping itself apart a little bit. And it had this like, it was like a 12-month train wreck that was happening right in front of you that you couldn't stop watching, which in a weird way is far harder to like carve space away from than 2019 and the rhythm of life and all those problems that you're completely familiar with.
Yeah, maybe.
It like, I mean, how much time did we spend just talking about the time that we had, you know, because it was so fucking weird. Like everything about it was weird.
I thought for sure that America was made of harder, tougher cloth than what this turned out to be. Now, granted, I'll get a ton of flack for that, but I thought for sure that people would just say no. No, I'm going to go live my life. I'm going to do my stuff, and you can, you know, say whatever you want, but it's a free country, and I'm going to live it that way. And that was just not the case. I didn't hardly hear any of that. And that, you know, live free or die, that is the issue, right? And so I was very concerned that we had to endure all of that, where once people started taking off their masks here at the end, you know, it just kind of went away, right? But it takes this groundswell of support to do that. And, you know, I was just super surprised that we just kind of knuckled under and just said, okay, government, you know, you're going to do your thing. So right, wrong, or indifferent, man, I thought we were made of tougher cloth. It's just, I don't know. That just bummed me out, man.
It was a different thing, like depending on where you were too, you know, like my family's in Montana. I go back and see them, and you'd cross the state line. Well, you cross the Cascades. It's like this gradient, right? Like you get to Eastern Washington, there was a certain perspective. You hit Idaho and Montana, and yeah, it's just completely different thing.
Well, and I don't mean rising up against the government or anything like that, but just saying, hey, look, leave me alone. I'm just doing my thing.
But that was the difference.
You know, like...
That was the difference, is the irrationality was generally like, you know, if I was rolling around in Idaho and Montana, the crazies were, fuck you, I'm not going to wear a mask just simply because you told me to. And I won't do it.
It's a free country.
Right. And then in the more liberal side, it's just the flip side of it, is like, you must because they told you to, but it's like, right, that's probably a good place for that to die.
Yeah. What was that?
Just all this bullshit. But nonetheless, it was like, it was kind of like this two sides of the same coin. Just what opinion do you have? But it's all because of this like super ideological stuff. What I did really like about basically over there, or there, was the figure it out. Like, it's your call. Just don't fucking tell me what to do, right?
That's exactly my perspective. And I'm not, it's not, for me, it's not a liberal or a conservative thing. It is like free to live my life thing. Like, it has nothing to do with my politics personally. You know, my politics are pretty liberal. Mm-hmm. It has everything to do with, you know, personal freedom and what the foundation of, you know, this society is. And I had thought that personal freedom was at the foundation of this society, and it, you know, I think it's less so.
Yeah, it's just the challenge where people think, well, your personal freedom is going to affect my health.
It's true.
Because of how you behave.
I do understand that.
Yeah.
But leave it to the person to figure out, you know.
Yeah. And it's challenging too, because like we have kids, right? And we mentioned it earlier, kids live in this digital world.
Yeah.
And the debate that I hear from my daughters is you can be anti-vax or you can be anti-mask, but you can't be both. Right. And it's how they classified based on everybody's news and media, all these teenagers and all the facts they're getting off of Instagram and all like the TikTokers and all the other crap that's out there, not really based in science, but just based on peer pressure.
Yeah.
And how kids are getting like ostracized, you know, and
Sure.
the whole thing, you know, people are really concerned about, you know, dying from COVID.
Of course.
Correct. Right. But nobody took into account like all of the kids who couldn't go to school, who are now stuck in their homes with no food and or abusive parents, and the dad lost the job.
Yep.
Right. And these kids are just getting
super bad
wasted. Right.
Yep.
Like all the things that are coming around from it. And well, which is worse?
Yeah.
You know,
but you know, the mask, no mask, vax, that's not my issue at all. And I don't want to be misunderstood here. Mine is the personal freedom to do the thing that you think will make your life the best.
Yeah.
And, you know, to be able to do that at all times, right? That I think was hindered over the last 2 years, is my ability to do what I want to make my life the best life that it can be. And so I am for masks. I am for vaccines. You know, I'm for all of that. But man, why mandate that and then ostracize people and make them feel small or, you know, outcasts for not following that methodology? It just was bone crushing to me to see that in a society.
Yeah.
You know, and that's life, right? Like it's crazy. But I would love to switch for a second because there's one thing that if you remember the last time we talked, you were trying to convince me to take ayahuasca, and I was trying to convince you to jump off a bridge.
I will jump off a bridge if you take ayahuasca.
While jumping off a bridge?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm not going to say deal on that.
Okay.
Because, man, that's a big leap. That's a way bigger leap.
It's not recreational.
No, I get that.
Yeah. Jumping off a bridge.
That's pretty recreational.
Recreational, yeah.
100%. In comparison. Actually, I mean, there's a bridge actually not far from here that we could jump off of.
I'm into it.
Right on. It's not high either. Probably 40 feet.
Yeah, it's what?
It's
like 11 meters, something like that? 10, 11 meters?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're not hitting the water. I've done 10-meter boards all day long.
Right. So you could climb up to the top and get maybe 80. You know, that would be something.
No, I'm good.
Jumping into water, is that your thing?
The gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. That means you're falling at an exponential rate velocity. Like I plan on using this in skydiving, but not where I'm going to impact anything hard like water.
I love it, man. I love to jump off stuff into water. Like, yeah. In fact, I want to get somebody to train me to do flips and tricks, right? You know, but it seems like I've put up flyers at like places where they have 3-meter dives and, you know, 1-meter dives, and I get no response. Like, you know, here's my number. I'll pay for lessons. How do I learn how to do tricks and flips? And, you know, because I can huck it over all day long.
Yeah, your body awareness. I've seen you fly. It's pretty amazing. So.
But, you know, comes a point where I need some coaching. That would be great.
Pretty high consequence when you get to certain elevation.
You crack your head and you're in the water and it's cold and you're just going to.
Yeah, what people don't understand is you cannot compress a liquid. It's physics. Like you hit it, it's like a sheet of cement. Like you have to hit. And
I mean, I've had stuff sting my feet, you know, from hitting the water, and that's, you know, it also gives you that, you know, gives you an enema if you jump high enough.
Yeah, squeeze your butt cheeks.
That's still.
Yeah.
Find its way in there. Yeah.
What the fuck? But your experience is under like supervision.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to do it, you have to go with a trained healer, you know, make a plan, do everything with intention, adhere to the diet beforehand, go to a reputable place. You don't want to go to somewhere where you're going to sit in somebody's apartment and listen to a mixtape. You know, typically you want to go with Shipibo trained healers. So that's the history behind it, as far as they know, is the Incans, you know, who they built all the stuff that we're still trying to figure out how they built it, had the secret of ayahuasca. And then when the Westerners came, they gave it to the Shipibo people to protect the secret. And they've fostered it over the last 500-600 years. But now it's becoming more Westernized and more people are looking, you know, into it. It's become very Instagram and cliche. And a lot of people look at it as a end all be all. And it's not. I mean, it's just, when people talk to me about it, I say it shows you your self-sabotaging behavior that leads to you not being your best self. And it does it in a space of non-judgment, so you can see what you're doing wrong and how many you might be negatively be affecting yourself or to others. So that way you can develop a plan, and the real work starts when you leave, and you have dedicated integration counselors, and then you work on it. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a real process.
When you said, "Hey, do you want to do that?" Because honestly, like that recreational, maybe not recreational, drug experience to me is like way outside of my box.
Yeah.
And so, like even opening my mind to the concept of it, right, is interesting. And so I'd love to understand just a little bit more about that.
So for people who want to get like the science behind it, it is it's DMT, so dimethyltryptamine. It's the only binary plant psychedelic. So mushrooms, you take a psilocybin, it's one single plant. There's other plants that are psychedelic, but this one plant, this is the only one where it's two. So it's the ayahuasca vine and the chacruna plant. So the ayahuasca vine lines your small intestine, so that way the chacruna can give you the DMT that's in it. And then it causes a rapid rise of serotonin in your system, which is the dream chemical, which crosses the blood-brain barrier. So essentially you're dreaming while you're awake. It's
oh wow.
Yeah, so you can either not have any visuals, you can have super color visuals. But essentially, like for me, primarily, like I have just more deep thoughts and emotional and feelings than the visual experiences. But it's good. I mean, it's just layers upon layers upon layers. I've been going to ceremonies for about 4 years now. I'm in the upwards of like 30 something ceremonies, and like now it's into the really tough stuff. Like the last one I went to was like really hard. But it showed me things that I really needed to work on. And so I'm changing my life as a result of that, and everything seems to be getting better. So I can't argue with it.
Interesting. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not totally against me doing that. It's just that is going to be a larger leap than 100-foot jump off of
it is. I mean, it's I mean, the way that I say it, like it always comes down to hip hop. If you feel it, you feel it. You don't, you don't. If it ain't really real, then you probably won't. And like when I I plant seeds, I've just planted seeds with people.
Obviously, that's been working around my brain for.
And I had a guy that I was talking to for like 4 or 5 years ago. I mentioned it to him, and he finally came to a ceremony like a couple months ago. Right. So it's whenever you feel it. Like if it's not a fuck yes, it's a hell no. So just whatever, man. Like do your research. If anybody wants to watch a good documentary on it, I would recommend The Song That Calls You Home. It's a really good documentary, and it's like all the other Instagram and cheesy ones that are out there. They actually upset me about how they talk about the medicine versus the Song That Calls You Home it's a good one. And a lot of people ask questions about vomiting.
Yeah.
Because it's a purgatory, and like I've only vomited.
A purgatory?
Purgatory. Like you will purge.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So like I've yawned primarily. You never trust a fart on ayahuasca. If everybody's wondering, like always get up and go to the bathroom. And I've only puked a few times, but like when you do, it's like the most glorious thing ever. Like you just feel lighter, like you're just getting bad shit out of you.
Wow.
So it's good. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll need to talk more about that. That's fantastic.
We will. And I'm sure a lot of people, like everybody's talking about it on podcasts now. And this is the first time I think I've ever openly talked about it on a podcast.
Right on.
So
yeah.
Like I encourage everybody to do their own due diligence and research and make their own decisions and follow your local laws and regulations.
And we'll, in the meantime, jump off a bridge for real instead of
for real.
The mind.
Right. And then I will just hold it over you forever until you come to ceremony.
Right on.
Right on. Well, on that note, I think we have got to do some surfing, some skydiving.
Yes.
Some tunnel flying, bridge jumping, and then we'll sit in a ceremony and have a good time together. See God.
Right on.
Well, on that note, you got any closing words you want to give to the people of the internet?
No, have fun. Do what you want. Like I'm a total freedom guy, and do the thing that makes you happy, and make sure you go after it full tilt. Like that is all I've ever done in my entire life, and I love it. Life is amazing. Like you should crush every day, or try. And if you're not, then like figure out why not, and then go for it. Yeah,
I'm into it. Andy,
do I have any thoughts?
Any closing words you would like to say?
I'm going to go with no this time.
No. Well, then I will end with. I think he pretty much summed up our podcast, the Feel Free podcast.
Right on.
So we'll put links to everything in the in the show notes. And if you guys have any other questions, just contact Bill directly. I'm sure we'll have some sort of link in there where you can get a hold of him.
Write me a letter. P.O. Box 6151, Silverdale, Washington, 98315.
Oh, I'm going to mail you something now.
Dare you.
And with that, everybody, feel free to feel free. We're out.